Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Shane Magnuson from Upper Columbia Guide Service and Yakima Bait, the designer of the cut plug from Yakima Bait. You got two different sizes, the 2.5 and the 3.0.
Yep.
And they are part of the buy three, get one free deal. Again, that starts on July 1, so make sure you keep that in mind. But first things first, I want to talk a little bit about your setup. Now, we know the terminal bait that you like to have behind your flasher. A lot of folks down at Buoy 10 use the 360 now. A lot of folks use the inline, the fish flash, for very good reason. And a lot of folks are still running just naked spinner like they used to do 30 years ago and are just as successful. So there's a lot of options. Rod options are also very expensive. You, as a pro staffer with Edge as well, like to fish this 360 rod. This looks like this is the 10.6.
Yep, that's 10.6.
Is this the pretty much your standard rod these days in the 10.6, or do you play with the shorter or even the 11-footer?
I really like the shorter rods off my back corners, the 9'2", 925s, 924s, depending on what leads we're running. But I also have been playing with that 11.6 rod off my bow rods, that 1165. It just gives a little more spread. It still seems to be short enough people can handle them pretty well. So I have three different sizes based on where they're at in the boat.
Okay, yeah, and the bend in these rods obviously helps out quite a bit. You got an 11-foot rod out there. The bend is well out front, hence the design for the 360 specifically. But you can use it for pretty much anything if you really wanted to, right? On this particular case, he's got a fish flash on here, which is Mr. Terry Mulkey's favorite color combo, by the way. But when you're out there at Buoy 10, you switch things up quite a bit. You're going to go from will go from the inlines to 360s based on what the tide's doing, where they happen to be, and maybe what they see getting bit, right, on different areas while you're out there. These are more kind of slanted towards using or with the 360, but you can obviously use them behind an inline, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had great success over this spring fishing them in that early season behind inline, and they should
Your first fish of the year was with the fish flash and the 3.0 cut plug.
Way back in March. It's hard to believe that was a couple months ago.
Dude, we were just talking about this morning. We're going into July already.
But there's no reason they shouldn't fish just the same out at Buoy 10 or anyplace else. You know, they have that more true cut plug spin to them, which is going to make them fish like a bait. I mean, as you've seen, these fish like to chew on them. They're not just hitting them out of aggression.
Sure. And they're a lot more durable than, say, a herring that could get blown out no matter where you happen to be.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there are definitely some advantages there. Let's show the folks, though, and you can just hold them right here over the top of the board here, how you got that rigged. And I think it's not necessarily becoming standard, but very popular with that tubing there and a couple of small beads.
You know, this makes it easy. Run a couple
over here.
Double hook setup on there. The key on these things is these small beads. You got a 4 millimeter on the bottom and this little 3 millimeter on the top. That's really what you want on these, is that tiny bead for that thing to rotate on. The smaller the bead, the tighter the roll is going to be.
Okay.
You start making that top bead bigger, the roll is going to get wider. So you can adjust the roll by the size of bead if you want.
So if you were to bump that up to, say, a size 6 blade, it'll make it more of a tail out spin.
Yep.
And if you have the 3 millimeter bead, like you're saying, more of a drill bit spin.
Yep.
I had no idea. Okay, they're doing something already.
Yeah. So, and the 2 hook setup's nice. You know, most of the fish grab from the back, so that tends to work very well.
I can see that on that particular, this is the 3.0?
Yep.
And these are what, 2 1/0s?
Those are 2 1/0s. Obviously for Buoy 10, I'd probably bump those up to at least a 2/0. If you're running the big river, if you're running just regular octopus hook, even 3/0s. You know, you're fishing a lot more current. Those fish are pulling harder. You're putting more drag to them. Whatever.
Sure.
You want something a little more durable.
Yeah,
so
sure. A little
don't
bit
be
more,
afraid to
more beef to it.
Bump them up as long as, you know, the lure's not running into them and it's spinning freely.
Gotcha. So make sure the hooks are far enough back that it doesn't impede the spin. Okay.
Yep.
Very nice. Now, you kind of did something a little bit different here. And one of the nice parts about this particular bait is you can do this. He's got a different cap on than what came. This is just the standard double treble, but you actually have a red tip on it.
Yeah, I took the cap off one of these double reds, and I stuck it on the top just because I didn't have one in the box that looked like that, and I wanted one.
It being versatile is nice, right? I mean, you can come up with sometimes a little pattern or something that's working better for you than maybe what was working for you, and maybe a little bit different than what everybody else is doing. In this particular deal, the buy 3 get 1 free deal, if somebody was only going to go in and buy, you know, a handful of these, would you recommend the 3.0 as opposed to the 2.5, or would you say get a mix of both?
I would really get a mix of both. I really feel those Buoy 10 fish are going to really like the 2.5s a lot. But you're going to find days where that bigger, more natural cut plug look, where you'd be cutting a green label, is going to fish really nicely. Running behind those 360s, that 2.5 is roughly the same size as one of your 3.5 spinners, and that snapping back there is going to catch a lot of fish.
It's interesting. Now, I know that you don't spend a whole lot of time there at Buoy 10 much these days. You've spent years there, of course, but you travel all over, further south or the main stem of the Columbia. Is there one that you might like when you're up in the freshwater or even in a different area? Is that when you might say a 3.0 might be a better bet, or the 2.5 maybe down in the rogue areas might be better than the 3.0?
Absolutely. I was finding this, and we were talking about it this spring when I was trolling off the mouth of the wind for springers. They liked the bigger one better. They wanted to snap at that 3.0. I also find when drift boat fishing, if I'm in tributaries, back trolling divers, back bouncing with leads with these, the bigger one seems to fish better than the smaller one. And it has to be with it catching water and those slower currents, and it lifts, you know, like a spinning glow, where the smaller one doesn't have that same lift.
And that's the profile.
That's the profile. So there is definitely spots where the bigger one has its place.
Now, there are a number of people out there right now that are going, elaborate on the diver. What are you talking about, diver? Okay, if you didn't catch that, that's not the first thing you might think about a stuffer bait behind a diver. So you use that in some of the tributary situations you might be in?
Absolutely. It's no different than putting a flatfish and a jet diver out there and back trolling them behind the oars or whatever you're doing. Just change it out with a cut plug.
Now, bouncing a cut plug herring is by no means new for any fall Chinook, any tributary fishing along the... God, I miss some of those days. But back bouncing one of those things too sounds very interesting.
Yeah, add some color to your cut plug with some different scents and baits. And
yeah. Okay. We're learning. We're all learning. All right, but we can't not talk about spinners. Now, there's a reason why there are so many different versions of spinners out there these days. Mulkey, of course, Mr. Terry Mulkey himself. Then, of course, the Hildebrand. They're quite a bit different, right? Yep. Terry likes to have the willow leaf style blade, right? A little bit, you know, completely different design. They spin very much differently. They have a different profile when they're spinning. Hildebrands are a little bit different, though, as opposed to the Mulkey, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a Cascade blade versus a Colorado, and they both do two different things. That Colorado blade's gonna hug your leader and the shaft tightly, which is going to be very visual from the side for a fish, where the Cascade blade or the Mulkey blade, it's going to stand out, and it's going to be very visual to the fish if you get followers. And we all see those fish on our screens that follow, follow, follow. That's going to be a time where a Cascade blade's going to stand out versus a Colorado. So there's different times.
Makes sense, especially with some of the technology we have available to us now. You can really see what they're doing. Why aren't they biting? Okay, and that'll drive you crazy with some of that stuff. Okay, but you seem to have them rigged pretty common. We've talked about this with you, even here in the studio. You've got a treble hook and then a stinger right behind it.
Yep, that's you know, it's a number 2 treble. I run 2s. I know a lot of guys down at Buoy 10 bump this up to a 1 just for durability.
Sure.
And then I run a 1, or you can even bump it up to a 2-aught. This is just a Big River single out the back.
Exclusively soft spinners now, or do you still use the older style of a spinner with the wire?
Well, so I've been pretty much using exclusively soft spinners for the last couple of years until I had a buddy of mine last year show up, and he was out fishing all of us, and he said, oh, I threw on a wire spinner and it was getting bit and the soft spinners weren't, just like all of us weren't getting bit.
Sure.
And it's obviously a wire spinner still has its place.
Absolutely.
It's going to snap behind that flasher a little differently.
It's a little different look, a little different action. Day to day, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of difference there.
Yep.
In the fall Chinook season, this was actually a question for you. Are you still running shrimp at all?
I do some. I seem to more later once it cools off. So when those fish get upriver, we start seeing more coho in the system, and that river cools off, you know, that early part of October, maybe late September. Then I'll start tipping them with shrimp again and doing really well.
But between then and now, just pretty much straight, maybe a little scent?
Yep, I throw a little scent on them and off you go.
Okay, gotcha. Leader lengths. When you're talking about the stuffers, you got the spinning fish as well, which I know that you're very successful with the spinning fish and the cup plug. But the question always comes up, is there a difference in leader length between the two different versions and even spinners? Are there times where you do find that a different leader length is going to be, you know, a little bit more successful?
Yeah, and I think fall is a really good time to look at this because we got leaders all over the board from 24 inches up to 36.
Sure.
But basically, the stuffer base, the cut plugs, and the spinning fish, they're going to be a lighter bait. They're going to get more snap behind that flasher, so I tend to run a little longer leader on them, 30 to 33 inches, where my spinners that are going to have a little more drag, we tend to run a little shorter, 28 to 30. That's kind of my averages, so that they get that same snap behind the flasher.
When you're talking about snap behind the flasher, what do you really mean by that? Are you just talking about it's just kind of bouncing around, or is it literally snapping back and forth? What do you mean by that?
It's that pulsating action. Every time that flasher rolls, that spinner or that cup plug is going to speed up and slow down based on the roll. And the shorter the leader, the harder it's going to snap behind that with that speed up, slow down. And the longer the leader, the softer that's going to be.
Okay.
So I'm trying to find that perfect spot where those fish react.
All right, so it's all about the old school saying that Buzz Ramsey came up with 100 years ago, the cat and mouse kind of theory.
Absolutely.
All right, so it makes sense. You got a lot of options, right? If you were just to take this board and go to Buoy 10, have a little bit of bait to put in them, not a lot in some of them, you have a really good opportunity to be successful out there. Then if you go ahead and get one of these, big old giant
I want one.
I'm telling you, dude, the report has been, it's a total gimmick, everyone. This is not intended to fish, although the guy that made it said that he caught fish with the thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but look at the size of that thing.
It'll fish.
Yeah, 48 ouncer to hold that thing down. Hey, but thanks for coming in. And
Thank you.
I know on a Saturday it's hard to get a hold of a professional guide, but you're taking a little bit of break right now, getting ready for a real busy time of the year.
It's been nice sleeping in a little.
I'm sure it is. And I'm already looking at hunting season. I mean, myself, shoulders a little sore from this week. But again, thanks for coming in and sharing some info, my friend.
you.
We appreciate it. We're going to cut to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have a live report with Kyle Dodson from Oar Angling out of Pacific City. You ever gone out of Pacific City in a dory?
I haven't and I want to.
Okay, I need to set you up
Bucket
with
list.
Kyle. I need to set you up with Kyle. We'll be back in just a minute.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective. And by North American Metals Incorporated, first choice for all your metal roofing and siding needs.